Today, we are discussing regional agritourism strategies for community economic development. This virtual gathering is the 9th in a series leading up to the International Workshop on Agritourism, which will take place in Vermont in person in August of 2022. Until then, we are planning to keep these virtual connections going in a variety of different ways to strengthen the agritourism network. And I want to mention that we are open to new ideas for connecting and new topics and speakers. So please feel free to get in touch with me if you have suggestions. A major sponsor for the Vermont conference and for these virtual gatherings is Yonder, a new booking site that promotes farm stays and other nature-rich guest experiences. Founded and advised by farmers, Yonder highlights stewards that have a connection to their local community, practice environmental responsibility, and exhibit hospitality that's reflective of this commitment. Through the Yonder site and app, guests can discover and book overnight stays and activities at farms in the US and now also in Europe. Yonder has been expanding around the world, and they have been an incredibly important partner for the International Agritourism Network that was launched at the first World Congress on Agritourism in Italy back in 2018 and was organized by UREC Research. Until we can meet again in person at the conference in Vermont in August of 2022, we're continuing to build this network through virtual gatherings and other means. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about some virtual gatherings that are coming up soon, like one organized by Agritourism India that's happening this weekend. I'll talk about that at the very end. But first, before we dive into today's discussion, I want to get a sense of who is with us, and I'm going to launch a poll. Right now, you should see on your screen a question that says, describe yourself. Check all that apply. And I can see that many of you are pros at this. Many of you have been to these agritourism gatherings before. And I can see the numbers coming in, so we'll give you just a minute to respond. And I want to also, after you've responded and clicked on the various buttons that represent the various jobs and affiliations that you have, if you wouldn't mind, take a moment to type into chat and introduce yourself. I have the privilege of being able to look at the registration list, and I was able to see that we had almost 400 people from over 30 different countries registered today. And I could see that it was an incredible mix of producers, government agency, tourism professionals, educators, researchers, service providers. However, you don't get to look around the room and see all the faces and see the many different nationalities and ideas and businesses that are represented. So feel free to type into the chat and introduce yourself. Oh, and when you type into the chat, make sure that you select panelists and attendees. Otherwise, the panelists get to see who you are, but everybody else doesn't. And of course, only type into chat if you feel comfortable. I'm sharing the results now, and it looks like we're about a quarter tourism professionals, closely followed by researchers and nonprofits at 24 and 23%. And then we've got a good mix of farmers, extensions, and service providers coming in at 20%, and as well as educators and government agencies and other right up there. I'll stop sharing the results, and I will also stop sharing my screen because I now want to introduce our moderator, Katharine Millonzi. Katharine is a consultant who advises hospitality, travel, and tourism ventures on strategy, sustainability, and business development. With a background in gastronomy and regenerative agriculture, and inspired by years spent in Italy, Katharine's area of expertise is agritourism. She designs and facilitates cultural and leadership experiences around food and nature. She's based in the Hudson Valley of upstate New York and has been instrumental in coordinating and curating this series of agritourism gatherings, including today's amazing lineup of speakers. Katharine, I'll hand it over to you now.
Thank you, Lisa. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We've been so moved by the outpouring of support for this series, and today is the last one, so it's bittersweet for us. We've had a great time running the series since September, and I encourage you all to go to the website and view some of our past panels. Today, we're talking about the role of agritourism in sustainable rural and community development. And we will hear 3 diverse case studies that explore how agritourism can shape and contribute to regional economic development and tourism planning strategies. As Lisa said, I'm based in upstate New York in the Northeast of the US. And when I moved to this region, what is referred to as the Hudson Valley, centered around the Hudson River, this subject that we're discussing today was the topic of my own research and work here. The region where I live is renowned for its mountainous landscapes and natural beauty and its agricultural heritage. The main crops here are grains and apples. And the region has a long-standing reputation as a retreat from urban life of nearby New York City and Boston. And we have an impressive and growing roster of award-winning restaurants and chefs in the region who focus on farm ingredients. And the interest in the regional food system continues to grow. Visitors are coming here, drawn to experience this place through agriculture and cuisine. And the question is that we'll discuss today, how to integrate these experiences into a system that benefits everyone, not least of all the farmers and food producers. How do you make this happen? And in my experience, it depends upon collaboration across sectors. You need marketing clout, you need investment to individual businesses, you need government agencies and extension providers, and all of the representative stakeholders that we saw are listening into this panel today to work together. And certainly, I trust our panelists will illuminate their own pathways towards similar visions in their regions, and that they will improve our understanding of how agritourism activities can contribute to revitalizing rural communities. And this conversation feels of particular importance in a period of travel and tourism characterized by both a resurgence in the post-COVID world, although I'm aware of certainly doesn't feel post in many countries around the world. So let's say within the pandemic era, travel and tourism having a new look at the industry practices, and also a period where the traditional patterns of rural development, or the failures, one could say, of rural development are coming into light, and people are looking at new ways of social change and structures. So all of that, we hope, is rooted in a more ecologically sound future with lots of localized solutions at the forefront. So with that, I would like to introduce our first panelist, who can tell us a bit more about the beautiful photograph of the woman with the rose petals that was on our invitation to today's gathering. Shiva Soroushnia studied environmental economics, and currently she is a researcher in sustainable tourism and agritourism. She is speaking with us from Iran today. And her professional journey started 10 years ago when she began working with NGOs in sustainable development projects. She's also worked for well-known organizations such as the UNDP and TNA. These projects familiarized Shiva with sustainable development and ecotourism as a means to improve people's livelihood and the environment. She is also currently an international tour guide and is working on developing business plans focused on sustainable tourism to enhance the regional economy with minimum impact on the environment. Shiva also participates in numerous volunteering projects, mostly educational ones, and she received the Good Citizen Award from the municipality of Tehran due to her sustainable development activities. Congratulations on that. She is passionate about hiking, traveling, and exploring nature and various cultures, and she loves art and yoga, which are two important parts of her life. We're so happy to have you with us, Shiva. We'll turn over the screen and the microphone to you.
Thanks, Katharine, and hello, everyone. I'm so glad that today I'm here and I can show you the Rosewater Festival, which we call it Golabgiri in Iran. And I want to just take you to a tour, and I hope you enjoy it. So with no waste of time, I want to share with you my screen and talk about Golabgiri Festival. Every year around the Ramsar and Nyasar of Kashan villages, hundreds of tons of roses are cultivated, distilled, and turned into rose water. The production of rose water in Iran has a long history of more than 2,500 years, and the ancient cities of Kashan and Ramsar are among the leading centers for production of rose water in Iran. Here you can see damask rose, which we're going to talk about today. Currently, 15,000 hectares is under the cultivation of damask rose in Iran, and 22,000 tons rose water is produced annually here. Also, Iran, with 30,000 tons damask rose, is the first producer of this flower in the world. We export 40% and we use 60% of this amount. Okay, where exactly is Iran located? According to the map, which I show you, Iran is located in West Asia and borders the Caspian Sea, Persian Gulf, and Gulf of Oman. And the place and region that we want to talk about is Kashan in center of Iran, which has a dry environment, and it is well known for its Golabgiri festival. Based on resources and plant biology scientists' point of view, origin of damask rose production started from Iran. After the attack of Alexander the Macedonian, they brought this plant to Macedonia and Bulgaria for cultivating there. The interesting about production of rosewater in Iran is the technology of this production is almost the same for 2,500 years in Iran, and the economy and the life of people living in Kashan is economically dependent to this flower, to some extent that sometimes 80% of the villagers' income depended on damask rose production. We call damask rose an aromatic gold here because this plant is cultivated in mountain foothills and dry areas, which there is a little possibility of cultivating other plants, and also the essence and essential oils extracted from this flower is among the most expensive ones. About the harvesting rosewater, harvesting damask rose, I should say that harvesting damask rose is a family activity. Every member of the family participates, and tourists also can participate in harvesting too. And cultivating damask rose and producing rosewater does not need a huge amount of investment and also large amount of water. So they make it possible for villagers in Kashan to have this business. From middle of May to middle of June, Ramsar becomes a dazzling canvas of pink roses, and rows upon rows of plants known in Iran as Mohammadi roses, bloom over the course of 25 days. And every year, tourists from all over the country and abroad come to watch the workers and farmers and entire families pick roses and distill them into rose water. One of the farmers said, it's the best to finish picking flowers before the sun comes up over the mountains, because the direct sunlight and heat cause the delicate fragrance of the roses to evaporate, resulting in low quality rose water. Now we pick the flowers and we are taking them for distillation process. Harvested flowers are placed in copper pots with added water and then sent to an oven made of bricks and cement or stone and mud. Then an intense fire is kindled, and while the water boils, rose water steam is released with essential oils, which condenses and flow through aluminum pipes into a special container. The entire distillation process takes about 4 hours, and as a result, they get 40 liters of rose water out of 30 kilograms of flowers. And the amount of roses varies depending on whether you want heavy or light extract. The main products of rose water in Iran are, the main product of damask rose in Iran are rose water, essence, dried petals, which are used for pharmaceuticals, perfumes, cosmetics, and food industries. And despite the harsh economic time in Iran, the rose water business is thriving as domestic and international demand continuously grows. And here I want to thank my friend Ibrahim Mirmalek for his contribution in taking photos of Golabgiri Festival. And you can see his other wonderful photos in his website. Economic benefits play the primary role in impact of Golabgiri Festival and tourism development in the area, with rising capital value, job diversification, and increasing villagers' income. And according to studies, there is a meaningful relationship between regional development and the number of damask rose producers. Also, there is a meaningful relationship between damask rose production and local accommodation. In other words, rising in damask rose production would increase local accommodation development, which would cause increasing in other activities to develop tourism in the area, which all would lead to enhancing the living quality and purchasing power of villagers. When the number of tourists in the area increase, the price of farmland would increase too, which is a development index of a region, since they increase the livability of villages by attracting more tourists and increasing local accommodation for tourists and returning people to their motherlands and encouraging young people to stay in their villages and don't immigrate to cities. One of the results of Golabgiri Festival is, in the last 2 decades, is rising local accommodation and restoring old and traditional houses, which empowers tourism in the area and attract thousands of national and international tourists annually to the area. Every year, 2 million national tourists and 200,000 international tourists visit Kashan. And here you can see some renovated houses that tourists can use in the region. About the Golabgiri and COVID-19. During this time, for the restrictions we have in the country, production of rose water is still ongoing, but tourists cannot attend to that. Thus, farmers lost the profits gained from tourists visiting their villages and the direct purchase they had. And farmers should sell their products to intermediaries at lower price, and obviously they lose a considerable amount of profits. And now I want to share with you some other activities that farmers and villagers do in the area besides producing rose water for diversifying their income, like beekeeping in damask rose gardens, pottery and other types of arts in Kashan. You can see rugs and carpets in the region, which some of them have the design of damask rose. Also, making copper products in Kashan is so popular. You can buy some pickles and other foods produced in Kashan. Also, you can buy pastries there. They serve their guests with these kinds of pastries. They are so delicious. And ash, which is our traditional dish. This is a kind of a thicker soup, so nutritious and delicious. You can find it everywhere in Golabiri Festival and in other occasions and in every place. Damask rose jam, some herbal drinks, essential oils, essence, and damask rose syrups are the other products of damask rose. And I wanted to show you the role of damask rose on Iranian architecture, that you can see it not only in Kashan, but in other places that damask roses are designed in the architecture all over the country. At the end, I want to just talk about two celebration and ceremony we have in our country, which are related to damask rose and rosewater. The first one is Nowruz Rudha. If I want to just introduce and translate the word for you, Nowruz is the most important ceremony of Iranian people for over 3,000 years, in which we celebrate the first day of solar year, and it is the beginning of spring. And the meaning of Nowruz Rudha means the celebration of rivers. This ancient ceremony takes place at the end of winter, and people come together to dredge and clean the river basins and springs, and they do this work while they are singing and playing traditional music, and they pour rose water in water and thanks the rivers and springs for flowing again. And in this way, they have a beautiful connection with nature. However, unfortunately, there is no longer take place in every region of Iran, but we can still see that in some areas like Kashan or Damghan. The last tradition is Golghaltan tradition. Golghaltan means rolling in flowers, and this is for babies who see the first spring of their lives. And it is done by the mother, aunts, and grandma. For this tradition, a few family members, family women go to the gardens and pick damask roses while they're singing special songs. Then they shower the baby and lie him or her in a white cloth full of damask rose petals. And while holding the four angles of the clothes, they sing some special songs about beauty and roll the baby in the petals. Then they serve the guests with pastries and traditional drinks, and people in Kashan believe that rolling babies in damask roses would cause his freshness and happiness and stay away from ugliness and disease. Also, the freshness of flowers protect the skin of babies. Thanks for your attention. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope I could show you the primary role of Rosewater Festival as a primary key to sustaining rural economic development by letting farmers diversify their income, regenerate communities, and preserve the culture, and in general, regional development. I would be happy to answer all of your questions. This is my email address, and thanks again for your attention. I would stop my screen sharing. Okay.
Thank you, Shiva. Beautiful. And as a new mother, I wish I could roll my new daughter in lots of rose petals. What a beautiful tradition.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. And
you're welcome.
Please do type in any questions you have for Shiva or any of the panelists into the Q&A down at the bottom of your screen as we go. We will have time for questions, hopefully at the end. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our next panelist, Trevor Jonas Benson. Trevor is a social-minded systems thinker, a progressive project manager, and an extroverted intrapreneur. Since 2006, he has been supporting the development of local sustainable food systems in Canada and abroad. Trevor is passionate about collaborating with others to create meaningful change in the way that people experience food, and he enjoys nothing more than working with the peoples that make it taste so great. And Trevor in 2013 to 2015 was engaged by the Culinary Tourism Alliance to design, develop, and implement Feast On, a local food certification project that recognizes champions to Ontario's food service industry. And after playing an instrumental role in the successful completion of 25 social enterprise and social innovation projects with ethonomics, Trevor returned to the CTA in 2017 to lead the development of its mission-based social enterprise consultancy. As VP of Destination Development, Trevor oversees all aspects of the CTA's professional services division, including managing highly participatory and asset-based food tourism development projects at the local, regional, and national levels. In the past 3 years, he has contributed to over 30 projects, 26 of which he has managed or is currently managing. Examples of his past projects, I believe he's going to draw on within his presentation. And we're delighted to have his knowledge from the Tourism Industry Association of Canada, as well as his other projects. So I will turn it over to you, Trevor. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Katharine and Shiva. I think as a tired father, I'd be quite keen on one of those beddings of roses at this moment, but maybe I'll have to settle for a bowl of Osh in Kushan. So I really enjoyed your presentation, and thank you for it. You should be able to see my screen now, correct? So thank you, Katharine, and thank you to URAC Research and the University of Vermont Extension, specifically Lisa, for this opportunity to present to you today. As mentioned, so my name is Trevor. I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit more about our work in regional agritourism strategy development, specifically in Canada. Before I do that, I'd just like to begin by acknowledging that my office is located in the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, and I'm grateful to all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples for their past and present contributions to the place that I'm privileged to call home. Over the past few years at the Culinary Tourism Alliance, we've had the ultimate pleasure of supporting the development of Indigenous food tourism strategies here in the province of Ontario, and I'm so looking forward to seeing Indigenous foodways and tourism experiences become a meaningful part of Canada's agritourism offering in the years to come. For those of you who may not be as familiar with your organization, as Katharine mentioned, we're called the Culinary Tourism Alliance. We were established in 2006 to implement a 10-year Ontario culinary tourism strategy. So for our province of Ontario, which, to put it in perspective for those from an international audience, is about the size of France. We're a fairly chunky province of Canada. In 2011, we incorporated as a non-for-profit industry organization to support the growth and development of culinary tourism, both near and far. And we include agritourism in culinary or food tourism. Our mission is very simple. It's to bridge the gap between the food and drink and tourism industries. And our vision is that culinary tourism and agritourism become meaningful and sustainable contributors to local economies and destinations worldwide. I won't go much into detail around how we do that, aside from just echoing Katharine's comment that we do programs. We have an amazing program called Feast On, and I have the pleasure of overseeing our professional services. By way of context, Canadians are not just nice people who say thank you and apologize for everything and use the letters E and H to kind of end every sentence, even though it's all true. We're also highly connected to our local food systems and our agricultural heritage. We're a vast country, and we're very keen to share kind of our taste of place with visitors who come from both near and far. And I say near and far because Canada is, as mentioned, a really, really big place. And what this means for agritourism is oftentimes local and domestic visitors are the target for agritouristic activity. It also means that agritourism can take on many different shapes and forms. In some of the places that we work, this may be as broad as including, say, a farm-to-table meal at a restaurant that's highly connected to its local food system. In other places, it may actually include participating more meaningfully or more immersively in harvesting or the production of food, and that would qualify as the agritouristic experience. As such, much of our regional agritourism strategy work involves really exploring what agritourism means in its local context, and most specifically within the communities that engage us. So how they see agritourism as helping their economic development, as kind of helping to regenerate their spaces, their places, prevent the brain drain, connect people to their rural and remote destinations, and ultimately benefit all those who call the destination home. So what I'd like to do is kind of look at 4 different cases, if you will, of projects that we've had the pleasure of engaging in over the past few years. The first one is an area called Peterborough in the Kawarthas, which is the home or one of the homes to butter tarts. It's also the home, or arguably the home, to an amazing heritage grain called red fife wheat, which was originally sent from Scotland. I see Caroline Miller as one of the participants, so thank you. And I want to talk a little bit about the project that we had the pleasure of engaging in 2018, which had us actually see Lisa and some of the UVN team participate in the First World Congress on Agritourism. So in 2018, Peterborough and the Kawarthas Economic Development and Tourism embarked on a journey with their tourism partners, really to explore agritourism as a growth opportunity for the region. They're already a destination, and this was a huge interest and opportunity around kind of expanding what tourism meant to the communities that make up this destination. So as mentioned, I'm in Ontario, and Peterborough is also located in Ontario. It's just north of the Big Lake, Ontario, and it's in between Toronto, which is the capital of our province, and Ottawa, which is where I'm located, in the capital of our country. One of the outcomes of the process that we engaged in with Peterborough and the Kawarthas was a definition of agritourism that really felt fit their context. For them, and kind of where we netted out with the work, is agritourism includes diverse experiences that connect locals and visitors alike to where their food comes from, whether directly through an activity that happens at the place of production, or in this case, indirectly by engaging with the people behind it. So as you can see, and taking inspiration actually from Lisa and UVM's work on their concept map, we put together this interesting concept map that really reflects this particular destination and community's understanding and manifestation of agritourism. It includes broadly kind of the environment, more specifically the spaces. In this case, farmers markets are included, parks, experiential farms, the experiences obviously, and then the economy at the heart, and people most importantly. Not every project that we've had the pleasure of getting involved in includes kind of figuring out what agritourism means for that destination, but more often than not, it's such an important part of the conversation. Unlike the US and unlike some of our European counterparts in other places in the world, we don't have a Canada-wide definition. We do have provincial policy statements and territorial policy statements that allude to the agritourism kind of definition, or definitions that would include agritourism, such as the diversified use of farmlands. But oftentimes we actually need to work towards thinking about what that definition is for the community and how it can be included in more formal documentation. So just recently, we finished an interesting project with the town of Essex to develop a 3-year strategy with their administration. And what was interesting in this particular circumstance, and it's one of the takeaways that we had from the project, is when you have a council and you've got administration, or you've got kind of a local government that's highly supportive of agritourism development, you can really move mountains. You can really stimulate agritourism growth and encourage industry to pursue agritourism in their own right. So to guide the development of the town of Essex agritourism strategy, we identified 4 specific objectives. One of them was establishing a shared understanding of agritourism among stakeholders. So if you're an existing tourism stakeholder, maybe you're in the wine trade, you engage in wino tourism or other forms of tourism, in this destination, they're right by the water. It's such a beautiful place. You know, one of the key things that we want to do is explore how these stakeholders understand and business understand agritourism. We wanted to also assess or evaluate challenges to developing agritourism in the region. We want to identify specific strengths and opportunities within the agritourism sector. And we did look at a multi-sectoral approach to Katharine's kind of comment. We think this is really, really important. And then ultimately look at what are realistic actions that that can stimulate the visitor economy and see the destination grow through agritourism in the immediate kind of first 12 months and short term 1 to 2 years. And what we ended up netting out with, which was passed by council a couple of weeks ago, was kind of 12 key actions that are very actionable, and they're not as kind of aspirational and kind of far off in the future, but really specific items that really kind of roll into 4 key areas. Growing agritourism as a priority. So saying, hey, this is what we stand behind. This is something that we see for growing our economy and growing our community. Strengthening agritourism networks. You know, it's so important to kind of tighten the collaborative and the network potential when it comes to agritourism, because it's relationship to the local food system, enhancing the agritourism offering, and ultimately attracting visitors. If we kind of head west in our country, which is no small feat, few hours flight, many days drive over to Alberta, agritourism, it's really important to say that it doesn't always stand alone. We had the opportunity to work with a county called Leduc County around an economic diversification strategy. And what this really told us kind of in our experience last year was that agritourism can actually be a small but very important part of a larger approach to economic development. So widely positioned as a tool for economic development, rural economic development, agritourism can help stimulate diversified use of agricultural lands. It can help rural communities, specifically combat depopulation, as I mentioned earlier, preserve cultural heritage and food, celebrate foodways, transition away from commodity production, promote innovation, regeneration and resilience, and diversify revenue streams for agricultural SMEs, which are all really, really important for increasing on-farm employment, retaining staff, increasing public access and awareness around food producing places, spaces, and peoples. So in the case of Leduc County, which is located directly south of Edmonton in Alberta, we were able to participate in a much larger conversation around the role that agritourism can play in an area that's really highly dependent, or was highly dependent, on oil production. So with its agricultural foundation and its proximity specifically to Edmonton and kind of these transportation routes and the phasing out of coal-fired electric generation, Leduc County is really well positioned to explore potential ways to link current and future rural land uses with economic diversification and development. And this is really key because they saw the potential to develop tourism, but more specifically with their agricultural land base, agritourism, as a means to really empower and kind of support small producers and small SMEs to become more sustainable through product development, through experience development, and really through optimizing their utilization of existing infrastructure and resources. It's such an amazingly rich place due to its history, historical ties to coal-fired electric generation. But the game is changing, and this particular county saw as part of the rural kind of diversification strategy, looking at what they have, celebrating what they have, and really focusing on tourism as an opportunity for the agricultural producers to participate in. And what they have, this amazing vision to see agritourism thrive in the years to come. Just yesterday, we had the pleasure of having an industry forum in an area nearby to Leduc County, but at the foothills of the Canadian Rocky Mountains, called the Foothills County, where we're participating in a research and capacity building project. And the focus of this particular project and this particular regional approach to agritourism development is really looking at kind of an interesting perspective on agritourism that's more focused on kind of a definition of agritourism that's highly connected to ranchers and to the spaces and places that make up this county, this kind of amazing feeling that you have at the foothills of these amazing mountains, and this experience that you can have, which is, exposing yourself to this rural landscape, this rural lifestyle. And one of the things that we're learning from this particular project and working to kind of not only do research, but kind of think about supports for industry is the need to really add clarity around who's doing what. Is it, who's involved in this particular conversation, who should be involved, what are they doing? And this is not exclusive to industry. What's the role of local government? What's the role of administration? How can we create clarity around the pursuit of agritourism so that there's less barriers, less red tape, there's more opportunity, and there's more collaboration among stakeholders? So I've just kind of really quickly touched on 4 projects, of which we're involved in many projects, but these ones are specific to agritourism. I'd like to just share kind of some of the things that we picked up along the last couple of years in participating in these regional agritourism strategies. One of them is that communication is absolutely vital, and open communication, and at all levels, not only amongst industry, but between industry, local government specifically, and then of course through destination managers, marketers, and stewards. It is absolutely vital to kind of understanding how agritourism is part of a community, how it can become part of that community's future. Ultimately, community's in control, and that's the most important kind of takeaway for us. But sometimes people don't know, and industry and business owners and operators are so close to their business that they don't know what's so special about it. We have the ultimate pleasure of discovering these amazing untapped foodways and these places and these processes that are of such interest and value to visitors, whether they're coming from just down the road or from further afield. So really kind of working with community to kind of reflect on what it is that makes us special. Agritourism, we feel, is only going to grow in the post-pandemic. We're particularly excited about this in the Canadian context. People have only become closer to their supply chains. It started with toilet paper. It ended with people cooking for themselves and being extremely excited about these food sources and things that we take for granted, whether or not it's picking apples, visiting a pumpkin farm, or participating in a harvest and really getting to know a farmer producer, are things that we see only increasing in demand in the years to come. So with that, I know I'm kind of early, but happy World Agritourism Day. I know it's coming up on the 16th. Would love to engage in more conversation if there's time after Lela's presentation, but lovely to see you all, and let's stay connected. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. I see that a number of people are asking for transcripts of your presentations. We'll have to figure that out. You rattled off so many wonderful benefits of agritourism and packed a lot in there. So no doubt people would like to follow up. And I want to give due time to our final panelist, Lela Kartishvili, who is joining us today from Georgia, the country, not the state. And Lela used to work as a tourism consultant. Her first practical experiences in tourism began as a tour guide, and she worked as the head of a rural tourism project at the Association of Organic Farms, Elkanah, where she initiated the establishment of the first rural tourism network in Georgia. She recently wrote her doctoral dissertation at Boku University in Vienna. And after studying at the academy, Lela continues her consultation career and now works as a Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, National Agritourism Consultant in Georgia. The ambition there is to combine consultancy activities with academic careers and introduce education to a new generation of sustainable tourism professionals and experts. And Lela will share about the development of agritourism in Georgia and introduce the experience and recent practice of working with various stakeholders to facilitate workshops and collaborative approaches. So thank you, Lela, for being here and for sharing with us.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really great. It's my pleasure to share my experience and talk with my colleague as a speaker. So I will share my screen, and do you see it, right? So as Katharine mentioned it, I will speak about agritourism development, the story of agritourism in Georgia, and share experience, what I gained from our projects and working with FAO. So agritourism, despite the widespread concept of agritourism in developing and developed world, this is a quite new concept for Georgia, recently developed, that it is more embedded still in rural tourism, which became an integral part of policy documents and strategy documents of the country. And comparing, for example, other countries in Central and Eastern Europe, it's occurred relatively late due to the political situation and lack of tourism infrastructure in general. The agritourism as a product, as a new alternative forms of tourism, was first initiated by Organic Farming Association, Elkanah, as Katharine noted. I used to work and still has a project with them, with the organization, and Elkanah was looking for source of supplementary income for farmers to sustain organic farming and introduce these interesting farms and the traditional way of producing to tourism market, and key players of commercialization of agritourism product and present on international market were, of course, the tour operators who knew well what post-modern tourists are looking for, new experiences and emotions and some new topics and education, escape is what is known for us, what gives experiences for travelers. So they packed nicely these packages, and Elkanah played the bridging role between tourism market, tour operators, and farmers. And I remember the first familiarization trips, farm trips, we name, to take tour operators and show them, and then pack how to interpret and present this as a packages. And considering the number, or given the number of theoretical contribution to the concept of agritourism, visiting farms is more appropriate concept for Georgia at this moment, because this is a part of component of tour operators, because we know that agritourism is not only the tasting and selling product. This is a complex of product, including hospitality, education, and entertainment, recreation. So farmers, there are few farmers still who has a wide spread of complex product, and they can sell it a week or 2 week product. So they are more like visiting. We name it the visiting farms are more spread at this moment. The tandem and the collaboration of farmers association and tour operators and also government agencies were interesting when we saw that for tourist market some traditional forms of product processing was very interesting and very authentic and unique. Even farmers became more interested in what they were doing, because for them some they think that this traditional way of producing was old-fashioned and was not interesting. But when they saw how the tourists were asking this for stories behind this old product, what they saw, and also discovered that they really kept the valuable thing for our traditions, for the country, and they saw in different perspectives their businesses. And what I want to say that agritourism really enhanced pushed this preserving the heritage and national traditions in Georgia. And this, for example, this winemaking tradition, which looks maybe very strange for some of our participants. This is, I will explain this tradition, which is kept still in Georgian farmers' houses, is that wine is fermented. So farmers are using wine vessels, which are made by clay and buried in the ground, and for fermentation, storage, and keeping aging and storaging wine. They keep it for ages. And also this wine cellar we name Marani is also unique with this architecture. They are some of them are open air and some of them are closed buildings. Depends on climate and environment where its location. And these traditions became Georgia's intangible heritage, recognized by UNESCO just a few years ago. And such kind of Marani and wine roots became the cultural roots of Georgia, became a part of cultural programs of European Council. It's integrated in these roads. So the big efforts from the beginning was made to find direct links between farmers and producers. And farmers started to bottle and pack and put etiquettes and sell on marketing. They were enthusiastic, but such cases and events were mostly supported by projects, of course, by international organizations and NGOs. And recently, Georgian Farmers Association are more concerned also to develop and push or integrate agritourism activities as a supplementary, and working on agritourism law also in Georgia. But for sustainable development and for it requires stakeholders' commitment, and as Trevor and Katharine mentioned it before, it needs more effort from different stakeholders, because it needs bottom-up approach. The projects which were introduced by farmers associations and supported by international donors are based on best lessons learned and case studies in other countries, but it was like a transfer of knowledge instead of co-creation of process with different stakeholders, especially regional organization. And especially now when agritourism recognized the importance of food heritage, as culinary tourism and gastro tours became also integral part of the process. There are many aspects and which needs interdisciplinary and multi-sectoral cooperation. For this reason, FAO started to investigate or support the process of investigation of national food and working on geographical indicators and food of regional origin to enhance this popular heritage and the link to tourism market as a way of alternative way to get income and to popularize both activities of farmers and product itself. For example, this photo shows us a preparation of Tusheti and Gouda cheese. Tusheti is a place in northeastern part of Georgia, and a few families still preserves this tradition of Gouda cheese making, and they are really made by shepherds and kept in sheepskin, real Gouda cheese, and it's very delicious, bit salty, but really delicious cheese, and got the certificate regional origin. So I want to emphasize that agritourism today for Georgia has more wide concept. It is embedded or used as a tool of revitalization of rural communities, especially mountain rural communities, diversification of rural economy, diversification of farms, and revitalization of, for example, cultural heritage side, and but sustainable development and needs innovations and innovation management. And we know that branding and promotion of regions cannot be sustainable unless it is managed by regional or local organizations, and it needs more solid entity in a regional level. So that is why now current project supported by FAO is supporting this multi-sectoral cooperation dialogue between stakeholders, and to establish a purposeful roadmap and long-term strategy. And we have focus group discussions with different stakeholders. We have workshops to identify the priority areas and what we want to concern the first time in the beginning, which priority direction and strategy actions should be taken in short and long-term action plan. So this is a stakeholders map. Maybe it looks very not very clear for us, but this is how I wanted to show what kind of state authorities or institutions and farmers association like Elkana and Georgian Farmers Association, together with Gastronomy Association, Ecotourism Association, and then practitioners at local and regional level, and destination management organizations with communities are involved in processes. And it takes time. It takes time preparing the strategy, but I think you will agree it's better to spend more time to have a common vision and common clear leading structure or guidance for other activities in futures. So the current concept of agritourism includes promotion of traditional life and landscapes and resilience agricultural production system, and we are more concerned our value chain development and gastronomy and etc. So this is a vision what we elaborated with our stakeholders, with our actors. This was very briefly about the story of agritourism in Georgia, and I will be more than happy to hear some questions and answer them. Thank you very much. I will stop sharing now.
Thank you, Lela. That was wonderful. All three presentations are so, the imagery is so striking, and it makes me want to travel immediately. I happen to love Georgian wine also, so I'm sure I'm in good company, there. So thank you. Maybe we don't have too much time for questions. Maybe let me just see here and encourage our panelists to look at the Q&A for direct questions that they can answer. I think, Lisa, we're pretty much out of time, right? what do we have time for one question or?
How about one question and everyone can kind of chime in quickly, and then
Sure.
we'll close and respect everybody's time.
So we'll do a quick fire round. I'll ask a question that each of the panelists can answer. What is the biggest challenge in your region to coordinated agritourism efforts? You all spoke to this multi-sector stakeholder collaboration. So just a 1 minute or even 30-second answer from each of you. So going backwards, starting with Lela.
Big challenge, I think from the beginning is, I can say it's challenge, but this is just take time to discuss and agree among stakeholders, because it's so far for Georgia, maybe for other countries it's different, but for now, tourism is in transition process in Georgia. We just are in process to delegate the tourism, and recently appeared this destination management organization. We have just in certain regions. So this formation of a new structure, also this start dialogue between these different stakeholders is a bit challenging, because it goes at the same time in parallel. And maybe for Georgia, it's and also this pandemic situation, we have online sessions only, and it's also it's a bit problematic. But I don't think, and the projects were developed fragmentally, and now, for example, Elkana develops standards, guest house standards, and the criteria of classification criteria for agritourism farms. Now other organizations also started activities, and it takes time to not to mislead our travelers and our guests in different approaches, but to agree in one common and take a lead as a leadership together. This is important for us, not to split this agritourism market, because can you imagine? Because I saw in some countries, some agritourism farm has different standards, in other region is different. So it's for tourists, it's a bit, they are confused what is going in here. And when this topic is supported by different international donors, here we need in Georgia strong coordination system to communicate efficiently.
Thank you. I'm going to stop you there and do quickly, Trevor, Shiva, what's top challenges or solutions?
I'll only take 30 seconds, Shiva. I think in Canada, where we've got a lot of rural and remote destinations looking at agritourism as an opportunity, I think supporting them and cultivating pride in their place and really fostering that pride, because I think we're oftentimes talking about non-traditional destinations or those that may be emerging, and really looking at agricultural producers who may not typically be associated with tourism or are just getting into tourism, really recognizing that value that they have. A lot of it's intangible. A lot of it's through their abilities to tell their stories, the stories of their heritage, their family, their traditions, their processes. So really kind of overcoming that challenge and supporting people, looking in the mirror and saying, hey, I'm really amazing, and people want to visit my place. Thank
you. Shiva?
Okay, as a quick answer, I just can say the education is a key for Iranian agritourism, because our farmers don't know that what agritourism is. So they should be educated about that. And then we will have a lot of progress in this area in my country.
Thank you. Well, this is very thought-provoking and eye-opening hour to spend with you all. And thank you very much. Lisa, I turn it to you to close.
Thank you so much, Katharine, Shiva, Trevor, and Lela, and thanks to everyone else who joined us. We had about 200 people here with us today, and so many great questions and conversation going on in the chat. I wish we had more time, but we know people are rushing off to other things, so I'm sorry that we didn't get to all of the questions today, but we will send out an email afterwards with resources and contact info for our panelists, as well as a link to the recording. And if our panelists agree, we'll share slides and even transcripts so we can make all this information easily available to you and to others who might want to check it out. We definitely want to keep this conversation going on this topic and also on other aspects of agritourism. We mentioned that we're taking a break for the summer in this part of the world for the next couple months. However, we're already planning for the fall. And in the meantime, our colleagues from other parts of the world have stuff going on. In fact, this weekend, May 15th and 16th, Agritourism India has planned an amazing program to celebrate World Agritourism Day. If you're interested, you can visit their website. The link is here, www.worldagritourismday.com, and Becky will put the link into chat. Registration is free, and Katharine and I saw quite a few others of you out there as participants who are also going to be participating in the program. So hope we'll see many of you this weekend online. And then we're thinking of other things to do, trying to make this more engaging and also really foster the connections and the networks. So this summer, we're going to be sending out a survey to all of you asking what's been working for you with this series, how could it be improved, suggestions you have for topics and speakers for the future, and even different formats. I know many of you have already reached out to me by email, and I really value these direct personal connections. We want to hear from you again through the survey, and we want to hear from everyone else. So please stay in touch, stay healthy. Hopefully we'll see many of you this weekend, and perhaps we'll see many of you through other events over the summer, and then definitely again in the fall. Thank you so much.